Oh, Instagram. What? Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Live everywhere. Hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's addiction. Welcome to this week's edition of the Surviving His Sex Addiction and Betrayal show. Welcome. Welcome. For joining me live this morning on either Facebook or Instagram. Today I wanted to talk about, well, okay, first of all, I'm Jenni Rochelle and I'm a betrayal trauma specialist. That means I work with women who are experiencing betrayal trauma because they have discovered either their husband has been unfaithful to them repeatedly, or actually discovered that their husband is suffering from sex addiction. And so that is my specialty. And I work with that group of women who are recovering from that particular kind of trauma. I'm also an ex-partner of a sex addict, so I have walked in your shoes and have felt that particular kind of pain. And so today, what I wanted to talk about was this week I shared a post on Instagram that was a quote from what I call the Survival Songbook. I had this playlist of songs that I listened to when I was going through my divorce and trying to decide whether or not I was going to stay, and I would have these songs on repeat. And one of those songs was Brave by Sara Barielles. And the quote that I shared this week was, let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell him the truth? And then it's like, I just want to see you be brave. But like, it's really hard to tell our truth sometimes. So why is it so hard to say what we mean and ask for what we need to feel safe? And this sort of idea came to me to talk about this week. I'm always inspired, usually by clients that I'm working with. And this week I was in a group coaching session, and one of the clients, she was talking about her frustration with herself, where if she was out in public, or engaging with the public right now, and she was around people who weren't practicing proper social distancing, and she felt like they were putting her and her family at risk. And like, as this kept coming up over and over again, but every time it would happen, she would feel the fear and be like, oh my God, I should say something. But like, each time finding this inability to say or do what she needed to feel safe, and instead found herself sort of being pleasing, and being nice. That's another way to describe it. And then afterwards being really angry at herself for not being able to stand up for herself and her kids. And she was really frustrated, and she was looking for advice, or thoughts of like why this is happening and what she could do about it. And here's what I heard her talking about is something called, what that to me sounds like, what's known as the fawn response. And I've talked about this before, right? So in our nervous system, we have several different automated responses that we go into at the subconscious level. And so fight or flight is probably the most famous. And then freeze came along after that. Think about possums who freeze and fall over, or the baby goats who faint. But then fawn is one of the newer ones, and it is exactly what she's describing. It's in that moment when we're afraid and we choose to manage, but don't choose, I take that back. Our nervous system, our brain, the oldest part of our brain, our amygdala, tells our bodies, it overrides our brains, our conscious, our prefrontal cortex. It overrides the conscious thinking part of our brain, and we go into this old, habituated, like, survival. It is a survival response that we do not consciously choose to do. And so what fawn looks like is exactly what my client described. Okay. It's being pleasing. It's being nice to sort of pacify the situation, and to get out of the situation without any sort of harm or conflict. And so that's exactly what it seems, that's what I heard her describing. And fawn, as it probably wouldn't surprise you to learn, is most often something that's exhibited by women. And of course, we have been indoctrinated, and I will use that strong word, by our culture, by our society, by the patriarchy, going to say it, to be pleasing. And that is a way that we have learned to keep ourselves safe. So that's an old behavior that is like sort of in the DNA of being a woman. Yes, absolutely, men do too. exhibit that as well, but it is by and large mostly women who do that. So what do you do about it? Because it's not a conscious response. First of all, and this is probably my answer with everything, is you just give yourself so much grace, right? So much grace for how hard it is right now, right? When as as a global society, we are all having a trauma response to what's happening right now. So everything is escalated. And so in every moment, every little thing becomes harder. And it might be that, like, if we weren't in a pandemic, she might not have a problem doing that, or you might not have a problem doing that. Or maybe it's showing up for you, in your relationship with your husband, who is a sex addict, and you're trying to ask for what you need, and instead you find yourself sort of being pleasing and like not wanting to upset the apple cart or upset the boat. And I've been talking a lot about that too, right? And a couple of weeks ago I shared the great Indigo Girls. I sailed that ship of safety till I sank it, but your boat's not safe, right? And so that's the thing. It just takes a lot of patience and practice and learning to regulate your nervous system. And I say that all the time. What does it mean? It means being grounded. It means being in your body. It means being in the present moment and breathing, so that, it just takes practice, so that when those things come up and those moments come up, that you might be able to give yourself just a second and react differently. Like, that's all you can really do, is just bring awareness to your habituated reactions. And you do that by meditation, by yoga, by scream singing in the car, by doing all the things that regulate your nervous system. So these are the things I love to talk about. It's in the Sex Addiction Guidebook, www.sexaddictionguidebook.com, 30-page, free. You can download it. It talks a lot about safety and self-regulation. And so anyway, I urge you to go out and download that if you haven't already. But yeah, that's it. And it's, I just want to again offer that you give yourself so much grace and compassion. If you find yourself just continuing to get stuck in that sort of fawn response, or in any sort of fight or flight or freeze response right now, right? Like, it's really, we are all at a very difficult day and age, and we just deserve so much grace. So maybe you find yourself compulsively reacting to your kids or your husband, and you're angrier than you want to be. Just remember that anger is part of the grief cycle, and we are all grieving right now. Okay. All right. I think those are all the things that I wanted to say. And so, yes, do I want to say anything else about how do you start to ask for what you need to feel safe? Like, you really just have to keep saying that as a mantra over and over again. And it really is learning to choose you over and over again. Oh, hi, Tiff Tiff. I hear you. You say you're definitely in a fight response. I feel you. I find myself in a fight response a lot these days as well. And we're all stuck in like this really confined little space, right? And it's hard, and we're on each other's nerves. And for those of you who are dealing with someone who is in active addiction or really in the heart of recovery, and like, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Tiff Tiff. It's my pleasure. um if you're, your husband's trying to work on it, and you're stuck in quarantine with this person who's such a trigger for you, like, I'm so sorry, and you deserve so much, so much, so much even more grace for what you're going through right now. All right, I'm going to wrap up for today. So stay regulated, go for walks if you can, deep breathing, meditation if you can, journaling if you can. And I say if you can because sometimes when you're in fight or flight response, you cannot sit down and be still. I have personally struggled with sitting down and being still so much during this quarantine time. I find myself on the move, and I know that's my own trauma response, but I am in flight mode for sure. So anyway, I love you all. If you have questions, please feel free to message me. I'd love to connect with you in the real world. Well, online, in the real world, not on social media. And again, free sex addiction guidebook, www.sexaddictionguidebook.com. Until next week, take care.